You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Construction of the $125 million project set to begin in 2025. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, let's do this. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Tuesday, April 30, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. I've got my pal, Justin Jones, with me this morning there in the control room. He's taking your phone calls and kind of running the ship, doing all the heavy lifting, as I like to say. But we're ready to go. I'm back in studio. I was down at Orange Beach over the weekend and a little R&R. And yesterday morning, I did my show from down there at the condo before I left to come back. But absolutely glad to be back in studio this morning, and a lot to talk about, a lot to cover this morning when you come back from a couple of days off, and we're going to have it all covered for you this morning here on the show. I'll run down the guest list for you here in just a second. But first, I need to tell you, as always, this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit, it really is just a better way of banking. And Alabama Credit Union wants you to carry your Roll Tide pride with the official credit card of the Alabama Alumni Association. Apply now at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com, or get by and see them at one of their many great locations around the state of Alabama. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money and put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, our lineup for today is a good one. The Rocket Man, Drudy Armand, will be with us at 9:30 this morning from 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville to talk some ball. Then at 10:30, Kayla Anderson will join us from up in Nashville. She does the Titans report for us all during the football season. We're going to have her on this morning to discuss the Titans draft, specifically first-round pick J.C. Latham, who they're going to move from right tackle to left tackle. Now, he played left tackle in high school, moved to right tackle to Alabama. They're planning on moving the giant J.C. Latham. He is just huge. Back to left tackle. I think he'll be able to handle it just fine, but Kayla Anderson will join us with that. Your phone calls are welcome on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. Pinnacle Park in North River is a small gated community of townhomes located towards Lake Tuscaloosa. 2 stories, 3-bed, 3.5 bath, 2-car garage. They start at $2,900 a month, but they'll lower the lease payment to $2,800 a month if you say you heard about Pinnacle Park at North River from the Gary Harris Show. So please, if you go look at one of these in fantastic townhomes, tell them you heard about it on the Gary Harris Show, and they'll knock a little bit off your rent. Call 205-657-7465 for availability. That's 205-657-7465. Live in style. These are luxury townhomes. Find out more at pinnacleparknr.com. That's pinnacleparknr.com. All right, let's get going here this morning. And so much to keep up with in regards to Alabama. It's just the basketball situation with Grant Nelson, as we had alluded to here many times on the program. We felt confident that he was going to come back for another year at Alabama. He made that official yesterday. You've got the 2 point guards coming in Philon and Holloway. We don't know Mark Sears' situation yet. Amori, the big center from Rutgers, it was still here until this morning, I'm told. Spent the night, was out at dinner with the coaching staff last night. They certainly hope to have him added to their roster, but nothing official on that yet. But Alabama is certainly one of the favorites to land him. Yesterday, we talked about the young man from Kentucky that On3 Sports had put a crystal ball in for But I don't know if that was a smokescreen for Amori or what's going on. I'm not saying that he won't wind up at Alabama, but that seems to have lost a lot of steam, Justin, in a hurry. And but we'll keep you up to date on that. Of course, Wimpenberry and Justin discussed it this morning, and there's an article on the Tuscaloosa Thread about it from Stephen Dethridge. But police in Tuscaloosa arrested Alabama offensive lineman Elijah Pritchett this weekend for speeding around the Strip on Friday night. That's according to new court documents filed on Monday. In a deposition, investigators said officers with the University of Alabama Police Department were on the Strip just off the UA campus around 9:30 p.m. Friday when they observed a black Dodge Charger with no tag driving erratically in front of a store near the corner of University Boulevard and Campus Drive. Pritchett was reportedly the individual driving the vehicle. The UAPD officers began to approach the car on foot, but the Charger reportedly changed lanes and sped off south on Frank Thomas Avenue. Officers could hear the vehicle accelerating quickly around and the sound of tires squealing as the vehicle drove around on Frank Thomas. That was what was said in the deposition. 2 UAPD officers got into a patrol vehicle to search for the Charger, and soon after, a sergeant watching the crowd gathered on the Strip reportedly witnessed the muscle car driving at a high rate of speed across the intersection of Frank Thomas Avenue and 6th Street. Officers caught up with the Charger and pulled the vehicle over at the Walk of Champions in front of Bryant-Denny Stadium. They reportedly found the 20-year-old Pritchett behind the wheel. Pritchett was arrested and charged with exhibition of speed, a misdemeanor violation of the Alabama code that outlaws street racing, exhibitions of speed, doing donuts, and other reckless driving maneuvers. If convicted of the relatively minor charge, Pritchett could be sentenced to up to 3 months in jail, ordered to pay up a fine of up to $500. And a court could prohibit Pritchett from driving in Alabama for a period of up to 6 months. He was briefly booked in Tuscaloosa County Jail before being released on a $300 bond. Again, that's from Stephen Dethridge at the TuscaloosaThread.com. So I'll say this for Elijah Pritchett, not smart. I go through that area on the weekends because I work at the TV station, which is in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And let me say this for the record. It is a very tightly patrolled area. They have a substation on the Strip now. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, the police UAPD makes their presence very, very visible. They are set up there in the middle of the street on University Boulevard with their vehicles, with patrols, with officers on foot. So it's not very smart to go through that area speeding because you are going to be seen immediately. And it's hard to speed. They usually have the speed barriers out as well, the speed bumps on the street. So it was a poor decision. I mean, after reading the story from Stephen Dethridge to you, I mean, I don't think it is something that, as I said, it's a misdemeanor. It's a relatively tame charge. It's not smart, but I don't know that I see too much coming of this. I'm sure he'll probably have to do some driver education. Again, Coach DeBoer, the head football coach, he'll make a decision there. But it's newsworthy because of the fact that it's Elijah Pritchett. I will tell you this. There are numerous individuals that are arrested for that type of driving from time to time in that area. And they're not football players. So it's not, there's not an article on the Tuscaloosa Thread about it. And we're not talking about it on the radio. But that's, that's my take on it. But it's certainly something that is not smart on his part. He is a candidate to be a starting tackle for Alabama. He worked at left tackle during the spring with Caden Proctor back on the team in the fall. I don't know what his role will be, if he'll move to right tackle, if he'll battle Proctor for the left tackle spot. He did play quite a bit last year. He's a good-looking athlete. If you look at him, I mean, if you drew up an offensive lineman on a piece of paper, you might draw up Elijah Pritchett. He's about 300 pounds, 6'6". He's lean. He carries his weight well. Built like a defensive lineman. That's a big compliment. If you've seen defensive linemen, they're usually a little more streamlined than offensive linemen. So from that standpoint, it's a negative. But back to basketball and this roster. It's going to be set pretty soon. I do believe that. It's going to be a good-looking roster. Having Nelson and Reitzel back, huge for this team, especially with all the new players coming in. If Mark Sears were to return, then clearly this Alabama team on paper is going to be a top 5 preseason team. Might be anyway, because a lot of teams go through overhauls now with the way college basketball is with the NIL and portal. But this Alabama roster is going to be a roster that is going to compete, I think, for an SEC championship. To the NBA, because I watched the Nuggets-Lakers game last night. Highly entertaining game. Unfortunately for the LA Lakers, this game went the way most of these games have, other than game 4 that they won. They had a lead at halftime in all 5 games, which is phenomenal to lose 4 of those 5 leading at half. They led and had a chance to win really most of these games, but the script is the same. The Nuggets just find a way to win. And, you know, LeBron James, what he's doing at the age of 39 has been phenomenal. I mean, he has been absolutely incredible. I mean, you look at him physically, 39 in the NBA is usually, if you are on a roster, you're playing 10, 12, 15 minutes a game, or you're not nearly as effective. He's as effective right now as he's ever been as a player. And he had an incredible game last night. But Jamal Murray, playing with a bad calf, with a calf wrap after he was questionable for the game, hit another shot to win it. I mean, we talk about clutch and clutch being everything. It's not only coming through in those moments, it's the willingness to come through in those moments. It's the desire to have the ball and make the shot. And Jamal Murray did it twice to the Lakers. And he has proven throughout his young career that if the game is on the line and you're the opposition, you want to try, I'd rather even have Joker have the ball. You want to try to get the ball out of Jamal Murray's hands. But the Lakers didn't. And he hit the shot with about 3 seconds to go. And then LA got it into LeBron. Joker did a great job of cutting him off on the sideline. He threw across the middle of the court. I think it was Prince that came up with the ball and heaved up a kind of a desperation just inside half court shot at the buzzer. And the Nuggets got the victory 108-106 to take care of the Lakers 4-1. Good news for the Lakers is last year they got swept in the Western Conference Finals. And they had snapped an 11-game losing streak to Denver with their win in Game 4. But, Justin, I don't know. You probably didn't watch the game because you were in bed, I'm sure. But if you're the Lakers, you're frustrated. That series 5 games in could easily be 3-2 or 2-3. But for them to lose 4 of those games when they led at half in every one of them, and in many cases, including last night, had leads late in the game. And for the other team to consistently beat you in those scenarios, even though the games are competitive and they're close, there's no other conclusion to draw than Denver's just better.
Yeah, and it's got to be frustrating for the Lakers. Like you said, 11-game losing streak, so I believe it makes it 12-1 now with the win last night. And that's just the hurdle they haven't been able to jump. And frankly, they really should have been in desperation mode. Of course, last night on the verge of getting kicked out of the playoffs, but you're losing time with LeBron. Like you mentioned, the reporter asked LeBron, is this your last game as a Laker? All of those questions are now not long shots. They're things that are probably really being considered as you move into the offseason.
Well, he is going to evaluate his situation. There was some rumbling last year that he might retire. I think he's coming back for one more year. I do think he would like to play with his son, Bronny. I don't know that right now Bronny's an NBA caliber player, but he's LeBron James' son. And I can tell you this, if there was a chance to get LeBron, some of these teams would take Bronny James. I'm telling you that right now. 30 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds last night for LeBron. So, you can't say he didn't do his job. Anthony Davis had 17 points and 15 rebounds. More than likely, when you look at this series, the conclusion you come to is that the Nuggets are just a better team and that they just have more depth and more players surrounding their 2 stars, Jokic and Murray. And the Lakers have some decent players, but they don't have quite the overall roster that the Nuggets have. And Porter last night was unbelievable for that team. Gordon, there's a reason the Nuggets won it last year, and they're the favorite to win it again this year, in my opinion. And for the Lakers, the Lakers are about stars. Make no mistake. I've been following, like I said, NBA basketball since really the mid-'70s. And the Lakers are about having stars. Now, sometimes around those stars, they have incredible teams, too. But they've got two stars. You know, AD and LeBron James are mega stars. I don't think their roster is up to par. And now LeBron has options. We'll see. He's pretty, measured in the way he goes about his business. I don't expect him to let any kind of information out or let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, on what he's going to do. But it's interesting to follow. It's also the Pelicans last night. They got swept by OKC. We're in that game last night and could have won game one. So that could have been a different series. But obviously OKC's better. OKC's the number one seed. And you look at New Orleans without Zion. And we're seeing this, Kawhi and with the Clippers, availability in the playoffs. I heard Barry mention it this morning. Some of these guys just, the Pelicans without their best player, they're just not the same team. And Charles Barkley can make fun of them all he wants on TNT. But you take away a young team like that and you take away their best player, their superstar player, they're not going to match up, and they didn't. So they're out. All right, it's 9:18. We need to get to the break. 205-342-9904 is the number if you want to give us a call on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline. We'd love to hear from you. The Rocket Man, Rudy Armin, coming up at 9:30. Kayla Anderson on the Tennessee Titans draft at 10:30. Your phone calls, as I said, on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline, 205-342-9904. We'll be right back after this. Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour.
If you want to give her the big stuff, you've got to see these diamonds.
VentureEndorsement.com, a little tricky to find on McFarland Boulevard between Edgar's and Local Roots.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans.
All from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A good chance of showers this morning, otherwise mostly cloudy today, the high 81. Fair tonight, the low 59. Tomorrow and Thursday, partly to mostly sunny both days and very warm. The high tomorrow 86, the high Thursday at 89. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 70 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Football portal news. Obviously, James Brockermeyer on his way to TCU, the former Alabama center. And then yesterday, 4-star safety Peyton Woodyard, a true freshman from John Bosco High School in Bellflower, California. He didn't last long here. He went through spring, and now he's on the move. Pretty confident he's headed back out to the West Coast, to a West Coast school. But highly touted prospect, originally a Georgia commitment, then flipped to Alabama, and but he's gone. But Alabama loses a safety, and they replace him from the portal. Cam Howard, a 5'11", 190-pound safety from Charlotte, has committed to Alabama. He has 3 years of eligibility remaining. He is a physical, smart football player. Watch a little video of him because anytime you're coming from Charlotte to Alabama, you're like, whoa, wait a minute here. But obviously, we've seen that a lot now with players at smaller schools that have proven themselves, and they get an opportunity to move up to a bigger school, in this case, Alabama, for Cam Howard. All right, let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline and welcome in Tom. Hey, Tom. Good morning.
Morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well.
I called and I had misled my own self, and I was thinking Boston and Miami were tied at 2-2, but Justin informed me it's 3-1.
Yeah. Miami is they're up against it. They're down 3-1. Why everybody got so excited was they won game 2 up in Boston and shot the lights out, and then went down to Miami with the series 1-1, and the Celtics promptly disposed of them rather easily in the last 2 games. So they're up 3-1, and Boston's a better team, and they're going to win that series. I think they're going to come out of the East. The Knicks are playing well, but I think Boston's going to make it to the NBA Finals.
Well, the reason I called was there were 2 reasons on the Miami, and one's a question for you. But the first point I wanted to make is that Hero. I didn't see it coming from him being the scorer he is. Now, I know his reputation in college was he was supposed to be a scorer, and but he's turned out to be a scorer in the NBA more so than he was at Kentucky.
Yeah, well, what happens now in Tyler Hero's case and a lot of these guys' case is they just flash in college. We don't always see them long enough, or they're, he can shoot the basketball. I mean, he can really shoot it, and he's great coming off screens, and he can shoot it from deep, and he's athletic enough that he can get in the paint and get to the basket. So, yeah, he's a fabulous player. Listen, if the Heat had Jimmy Butler, this might be a different series. But again, and we're seeing this all over the league, 82 games. And, of course, you've got all these teams that are in the playoffs, and they're not really who they are. The Heat without Jimmy Butler, the New Orleans Pelicans without Zion, the Clippers when they don't have Kawhi, it changes these teams. And unfortunately, we're seeing this a lot when you get to the playoffs and these teams without their best guys. So, and, Embiid's not been 100% by any means for the Sixers. So, obviously, Giannis is out with the Bucks. I mean, it's a shame. But you get to the playoffs, Tom, and it looks like it's almost as much about who's healthy now as it is the talent of the rosters. I mean, I just rattled off one NBA All-Star after another, and they're not even playing in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, well, my second point was going to be about Jimmy Butler, because Butler is one of my favorites. He's a dog, and he's a dog every night, and I really admire him for the way, his game smarts and all that kind of stuff. And but I wanted to ask you this, and let's surmise that Boston and Miami were at 2-2. Okay, I was thinking wrongly that if they were able to get to 2-2 against Boston without Butler, would that be the grounds that Pat Riley and Keith Askins and them look around and go, you know what? We can get a lot for Jimmy Butler, because there's a lot of people that can use him. And you see where I'm going with that question?
I do. The problem is I think the Heat feel like when they've got Jimmy Butler that they're capable of winning the NBA championship. And so he's a key cog for them. So I don't see them looking at him as trade bait. Now, again, Pat Riley is going to do whatever he thinks he needs to do to make that team competitive. That, with Spoelstra as the coach and Riley as the president, they're going to always be competitive. And again, Tom, if they had Butler, I think they'd be right in this thing. The problem is they don't, and they're not going to win this series. So you can't look at it and say, well, we won the series without Butler, now we can trade him. They're not going to win the series. I mean, they're probably going to go out in 5 games. It's going to be my guess. So they need Butler, and they need him next year, in my opinion. I think about the Heat. They have a toughness about them. It comes from Riley. It comes from Spoelstra. They have a toughness. They have a hard-nosed style of play, and that doesn't change regardless of who they put on the court. But without Butler, that team's shorthanded, Tom, and that's just the reality of it.
I agree. But I wanted to speculate in not just Miami, but in a case like where you got a guy that's valuable and tough and everything like Butler, but you were able to have success beyond your doubt, but any doubt that you had that you maybe you didn't think without him you would be as far. If you got as far, would it make an executive decision to say, okay, here's how we can improve ourselves? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I
if all that stuff you said is true.
Well, if they had been able to do that, in other words, you're right. If they don't have Butler and they're able to beat the Celtics, the number one seed, then maybe they say, heck, man, this is, but that's not going to happen. And I think the feeling is going to be in Miami, if we had Jimmy Butler. If we had Jimmy Butler, we could have beaten the Celtics. And they don't, and they won't. And I think they'll try to get him healthy. And the core of their team, with Bam and those guys, Rozier, I think they feel like they're, they can do a reset and add a couple pieces and have a chance next year to go deep in the playoffs.
Let me ask you this. I agree with you on this point right here. I think that my Boston and New York are going to end up in the finals. I do too in
the East. Yeah, I do too. Yeah,
and for the Eastern title,
right? And it'll be awesome.
But that will be a heck of a series,
absolutely,
right there, barring injury.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a great series, history, tradition. The Knicks fans are starving. They're so hungry, and they've taken over Philadelphia. If you get Boston and New York going against it on the court, in the stands, everywhere, there's going to be tension. There's going to be intensity, and it's going to be an unbelievable series. And I'm with you, Tom. I think they're on a collision course in the East to play each other for the right to go to the NBA Finals.
See you, buddy.
All right, buddy. Good phone call. All right, it's 9:29 here on the Gary Harris Show. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, the Rocket Man, Rudy Arman, going to talk Alabama basketball, football, baseball, and more next here on the Gary Harris Show.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after.
That for just $49.98. Get Klein Tools in-store and online today. Because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to
Industry Works and your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free info kit. 800-353-9900. That's 800-353-9900.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown.
9:32, 28 minutes in front of the hour, 10 o'clock. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Justice Jones, and now we are joined on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline by the Rocket Man, Rudy Arman, co-host Talking Ball, 7 to 9 a.m. on 977 ESPN Radio in Huntsville. Does a lot of recruiting coverage involved with Tider Insider, a lot of radio appearances, and, of course, with us every Tuesday, and we break down Alabama sports with Drew. Hey, Drew, good morning. How are you?
Good, Gary. How are you?
Doing great. Just your reaction to the news that we were, you and I, involved in a little media text group, and we were pretty confident that Grant Nelson was coming back, but now it's official. What does that mean for this Alabama roster next season?
Well, I mean, right now, I think they're at 11 officially, with guys getting locked back in, and certainly we felt like for several days that Grant Nelson was going to return. He certainly had pro options and could have tried and rolled the dice with the NBA, but I think even though he finished strong, his best bet was to come back and get stronger in the weight room and play his more natural 4 spot with Alabama and show another year of improvement to give himself a chance to play in the NBA. I think it was a wise decision. And, of course, coming out of the weekend, we saw LeBaron Philon complete the flip from Kansas to Alabama. And I had his high school coach, David Armstrong, on Talking Ball this morning. And DA, I've known him for several years. He did a great job with LeBaron for his first 3 years. They have a really good relationship. LeBaron went to Link Academy, kind of started that transition to being a point guard. Has continued to improve his outside shot, which has always been really kind of underrated. But, DA was just saying, how LeBaron's a perfect fit to the dribble drive offense for Nate Oates and what he wants. And with his system, you can play 2 point guards on the floor at the same time. And LeBaron brings extreme athleticism and a lot of upside to the guard spot. And the great thing with what Nate Oates is doing is, certainly Mark Sears would be the cherry on top of the sundae, but he's building a strong roster regardless. Now that really the big piece of the puzzle, literally and figuratively, is a rim protector. And I know he and Preston Murphy have been laying the foundation for this for several weeks since the end of that Final Four run, Gary. And so it's going to be very interesting in the next couple of days to see if they can get that 12th piece in place and get the rim protectors that they really didn't have a year ago.
Yeah, they're working hard to do that. We know that. Let's get back to Philon and also Holloway, Aiden Holloway. And as you stated, there's still a chance that Mark Sears could be on this roster, but to bring in 2 talented young point guards. One has a year of college experience in Holloway in the SEC. Philon, we know, was recruited by schools all over the country before signing with Kansas, getting out of his letter of intent. I mean, incredible recruiting job by Alabama to bring these guys in that are high-level talents that have a lot of basketball, probably their best basketball, obviously, in front of them.
Well, yeah, I definitely think LeBaron is continuing to grow into his game and becoming a pure point guard. He has tremendous upside, man, and I know Alabama had options out there and they were, had a lot of guards interested in coming into their program. But to get LeBaron Philon away from Kansas, I thought was huge. I mean, he's a supreme talent. The funny thing is, they had their irons in the fire with Boogie Bland and some other guards throughout the process. So, things never really worked out with LeBaron early on. I think LeBaron always had his eye on Alabama and being in their system. But Alabama, I give Nate Oates a lot of credit. He definitely wants to recruit at an elite level. And then, Mark Sears was still there at the time with LeBaron and could still be on the roster. But also, you're trying to recruit Boogie Bland, who signed with Kentucky, now is going to end up at Arkansas. He's a true 5-star talent. They've also been recruiting Mikael Brown, who looks like he may not reclassify to the 24 class. It looks like he may stay in 25, but they've had him on campus, and there was thought of him potentially reclassifying. And so there was that situation. And don't forget, Bradley was on the roster last year for a year, and looked like he had a bright future before deciding to go into the transfer portal and go to Arizona. So there's been a lot of moving parts, but they have put together, I think, an elite roster so far. First of all, kudos to retaining guys like Grant Nelson, Jaren Stevenson, who are good players. I mean, these are guys that are going to help you win basketball games. There's no question about it. But you get guys like Chris Youngblood, who is a Tuscaloosa native, but also a really good fit schematically. Houston Millett from Pepperdine, he's a really good fit. He can shoot the basketball. That's what I really admire about Nate Oates. It's not you want to acquire talent, but it has to fit, and it has to fit your system. He's done a great job at doing that. There's no question about it. And then, he's got, with LeBaron Philon joining, Nas Cunningham, Darion Reed, and Aiden Sherrill. That's quite a 4-man class of high school talent. And then, as we've said, Houston Millett, Chris Youngblood coming in. They could potentially add, a rim protector. No question about it. They've done a great job of adding talent to this roster. and having a mix of experienced portal guys and then also, high school players, in addition to returning, some of their roster as well. Because, again, you're probably going to flip at least 2/3 of your roster every year, and Alabama has lost 6 guys into the portal, but they definitely had a plan and a plan of attack. And, getting a guy like Aiden Holloway to come to Alabama and leave Auburn, and I think he's going to be a good fit for their system. He's probably going to be a better fit at Alabama than he was at Auburn. Auburn comes out with J.C. McGee, so I think both parties benefited. But it's really a situation of, if you're Alabama, you can add this last piece, this rim protector. You got to feel really good heading into the season, and you can even use that roster as a tool to recruit Mark Shears back, depending on the feedback he gets from the NBA.
Yeah, there's just no doubt about it. We don't know what some of these other rosters are going to look like in the SEC, and obviously Alabama, I feel confident, is going to get a center. But when you look at Alabama as this roster is being constructed on paper, Drew, in my opinion, it's a roster that's going to challenge for an SEC regular season tournament and tournament championship and top 3 or 4 seed, if not higher, in the NCAA tournament. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we talked to Jimmy Stein of Bama Online on the show this morning, and if Alabama could get a Cliff Amore or even, Onyenso from Kentucky, I mean, you could argue that they could be number 1 in the country, especially if they were to get Cliff, who I think is just a perfect fit, and is still in Tuscaloosa as far as I know this morning, finishing up that visit. But if they could get Cliff, they might even be the preseason number 1 team in the country, especially if an All-American like Mark Sears returns. So I do think if Sears returned and you got Cliff Amore, it would be the most talented team that Alabama's ever had in the preseason. There's no question about it before a game is played. I know Arkansas got Jonas Adu, and I know they've had Boogie Bland and Billy Richmond and Knox and all these guys. They're putting together a great roster, Gary. But I would take Alabama's 1 through 13, and I would play Arkansas anywhere in the country that they wanted to play. I mean, I think they're really good, and they're going to be really good under Cal, and they're going to be talented. But Alabama's coaching staff and team, I would take the Tide all day long. I'd take the Tide over Kentucky, and Mark Pope's doing a good job building his roster. But, I know UConn, they're making some waves. Dan Hurley definitely won 2 in a row and getting some of the best transfers in the country. But, the way this Alabama roster is coming together and could potentially finish, I think it'd be as good as any in college basketball.
You must have ESP, because before I go to Alabama football, you brought up Arkansas and Kentucky, and that's where I wanted to go with you to see who you thought would have the better basketball team this coming season. As you said, Cal is going to put together a star-studded roster. Mark Pope, that press conference that they had at Rupp Arena, I've never seen anything like it. We know what Kentucky basketball is about. Who do you think will have the better basketball team on the floor this season? Cal at Arkansas or Pope at Kentucky?
Well, I mean, it's just going to depend on how the pieces fit. At Kentucky, they're not done yet. They're still putting together a very interesting roster. Now, I think Arkansas will be more talented and have more NBA players. But look, Gary, we know how many NBA players Kentucky had last year, and they couldn't beat Oakland.
Right.
Okay. So, and that's where Alabama's not guaranteed anything. Alabama will have talented players. There's no doubt about it. And they'll have depth. But it's about getting guys to lock into their jobs and buy in. And that's what Nate Oates and Ryan Pannone and that staff are going to have to do. And that's what, Cal's going to have to do in Arkansas and Pope at Kentucky. If you had to ask me, Mark Pope has not been in the SEC before. He was been in the Big 12. He did a good job at BYU. Cal is a veteran. He's been in the SEC for several years. I would have to give Arkansas an edge slightly, but again, I don't know yet, how that Kentucky roster is going to completely fill out. But if you had to ask me, due to his experience as a coach and due to just the sheer NBA talent, and you need great players, there's no doubt about that, Gary. I would give Arkansas the edge.
Drew DeArmond with us, talking some ball here on the Gary Harris Show. Let's get to football. And much like basketball, the portal is working overtime. For Alabama, you lose a safety, you bring a safety in, and you lose a safety. Freshman Peyton Woodyard didn't give it very long. I'm pretty confident he's headed back out to the West Coast. But you bring in Cam Howard, who's one of these guys who started at Charlotte, tough, physical, smart football player in the secondary. So Woodyard out and Howard in. What do you think about that for Alabama football?
Well, it's just the way of the world today. Peyton Woodyard was committed to Georgia. He flipped to Alabama, claimed he was an Alabama fan, that he grew up always wanting to go to Bama, but then, Nick Saban leaves. I thought he had a pretty decent spring. He got some time with the ones and twos, and he was a guy that if he kept developing down the road, I think he'd play a pretty significant role for you, but he didn't give it that amount of time. I think the coaching staff knew after A-Day that he was moving on. I think he probably told them he was leaning into that. And he'll probably end up back on the West Coast. It sounds like Oregon may have the edge with Dan Lanning because they've lost several guys to the portal, Gary. So, but I think that's why Alabama did target Cam Howard. He got 38 tackles, a couple of picks for playing for his old high school coach, Biff Poggi, at Charlotte. He played at St. Francis Academy. Alabama's had a good track record with kids from St. Francis. They've been productive young men, and especially Chris Braswell, who was the second-round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after the draft this past week. So I think they feel pretty good about the direction and the Cam Howard taking the place, theoretically, of, Peyton Woodyard. I know they still like that young secondary quite a bit. It looks like Ed Woods, the corner they brought in from Arizona State, is going to ultimately commit to Michigan State. So they still may be on the look for an experienced corner to come in. And I think also offensive linemen, because we don't know yet the future of Elijah Pritchett. He had another run-in with the, off the field this past weekend. And Alabama only has 12 offensive linemen on scholarship. And I know they'd like to at least add a couple of more to the mix before fall. So I think that's the next thing to kind of watch in the portal is Alabama getting involved with some offensive linemen. And then also, especially at the tackle slot. And then, again, trying to add another piece potentially, in the secondary. And they've got a linebacker that's closely connected in Khalil Jacobs to Kane Womack, who will be coming in this weekend after visiting Auburn in Missouri.
At center, with Brockermeyer leaving for TCU, is it, and again, we know Parker Brailsford is expected to be on the roster. Is it Parker Brailsford or bust at center for Alabama? I know Ionata worked there some, and I know they'd have other possibilities, but as far as just having a starting center, are they counting on him coming back, or do you think they're looking the portal there to try to bring in a center before the season?
I haven't heard any of them connected to Bryce Foster, who was a 3-year starter at Texas A&M. I never really heard any buzz about that. I would think they're confident in Brailsford. Gary, he did practice some during the spring before taking a step away. He was very productive last year at Washington as a second-team All-Pac-12. He needs to gain some weight, probably make some strides physically, but James Brockermeyer did that. James is no shock. He's going to TCU. Where his brother went, and we'll see how he, transitions to the Horned Frogs. But I would think that they're confident in Parker Brailsford. Otherwise, I think you would have heard them already associated with some offensive line prospects in the portal. But I think they're hard to find, too. But we'll see. I mean, they've got 12 on scholarship right now. We'll see what happens with the discipline situation with Elijah Pritchett. But, again, haven't heard them, linked to an offensive lineman in the portal yet. But like we said, the deadline's coming up here in another day or so. So we'll see. But I still think they'd like to add maybe a couple pieces to that offensive line room. But I think they're pretty confident that Brailsford, at least from what I've heard from, from people that have spoken, with Kalen DeBoer, that he's going to be there in the fall.
Drew, this NFL draft, and I guess, I've been calling it the last one for Nick Saban. He'll have players that he signed and recruited to Alabama that will be drafted, next year. And so I guess technically he still had an impact. But as far as being the head football coach at Alabama, he's done. And 133 draft picks since 2009, 47 first rounders, 10 in this latest draft, including 3 first rounders. We're not ever going to see anything like this again, will we?
I doubt it. I mean, it's, you know, when you have 47 first-round draft picks and only 29 losses, that's just a stunning stat. But I think the most amazing stat that I posted about, once Will Reichert was selected in the 6th round and the first kicker off the board by the Minnesota Vikings, Gary, in 17 years coaching the Alabama football program, he had a kid drafted at every single position on the football field. I mean, fullbacks are almost non-existent this day and time. He had a fullback drafted, no doubt. And that was, of course, Jalston Nudie Fowler, who played a lot of fullback for Alabama. He was a 4th-round pick played for the Tennessee Titans for a few years. He had a long snapper drafted. He had, a place kicker drafted in Will Reichert, J.K. Scott, a punter, and then every other position offensively and defensively. So that just shows how good a developer and recruiter that Nick Saban was, to have someone drafted at every position on the field for the University of Alabama is just stunning. And to me, just shows you the all-around great program that he built in his time in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and, the Alabama-Auburn rivalry is so big, and Auburn's got a fine program. You and I both know that. We recognize that. But, again, to try to compare their program to Alabama's, Nick Saban's had more. Justin, is this right? We had this stat yesterday. He's had more first-round picks since 2019 than Auburn's had in its entire history. Drew, does that just blow your mind?
Yeah, 21-20, I think, was the stat that I saw.
It's incredible. Yep. I mean, that is absolutely, when you think of the talent that Auburn recruits, that Saban would have more first-round picks in the last, what would that be, 6 drafts? In the last 6 drafts than Auburn's had in its entire history. Just unbelievable stat. All right, baseball real quickly, Drew. A big, huge series win for Alabama at Ole Miss over the weekend, and they go to Starkville this weekend. And quite frankly, I think Alabama should have swept that series, but they're trending in the right direction. Hess is, unfortunately, their number one starter has been the guy that's kind of held him back. Ferrone and Adams have pitched great. If they could get Hess going, this team, I think, has a chance to do something.
Well, they do, and they have the last couple of weekends moved Hess back to the 2 slot. Ferrone's pitched very, very well and given them a chance to win every game. You talked about Zane Adams. He's been really, really good. 2 of the last 3 Sundays, getting them deep into the game, doing a great job. Was SEC Pitcher of the Week after they beat Arkansas, who was then number 1 team in the country. They've had a difficult schedule. Now they're down to 3 weekends. I felt like going into their game against Samford, they had 14 games left in the regular season, 2 midweeks and 4 weekends, and I felt like that they really needed to go 10-4 to feel good about their position in a regional and to feel good about going into Hoover, and that would give them a chance to be 15-15 in the SEC, which is always good in the toughest league in the country. And they got the 2 out of 3 against Ole Miss. You're right; they probably should have swept. Now they go to Starkville. It'll be a tough place to play, but I think it's a winnable series. And then this has not been a vintage year for LSU, and it's been a tough year for Auburn. Their last home series will be LSU, and then they'll go on the road to finish the regular season at Auburn. But I don't think it's unreasonable to think they could go 6-3, and then if they can win at Troy next week, 7-3 to end the regular season. That would give them, again, a 35-19 overall record going into Hoover and a 500 slate in the SEC. I don't think they would be hosting a regional at that point, but they would still be very, very solidly in. It's probably a high 2 and have a chance to make a run. And maybe, if they got hot in Hoover, maybe make a run, late season run at a host spot. But it would still put them in very, very strong postseason contention. And right now they're 9-12 overall. So they need to keep climbing. And I think that was basically Rob Vaughn's message after they took that Saturday game to take the series at Ole Miss. Look, guys, great series win, but they still got a lot of work to do.
Drew, we're smack out of time. Great segment as always. And just let our listeners in on how they can keep up with all the information you provide.
Right. Drew D, 977 ESPN on X. at 977 ESPN for our station. Scott Tyson and I bring you Talking Ball 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. All our content is on our SoundCloud page and on 977ESPN.com. And we always appreciate being on Tide 109 on the Gary Harris Show every Tuesday. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Drew. 9:53. We'll take a break, come back and wrap up this first hour right after this. Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Los Tarascos with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans,
mortgage.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511. All dogs are unique. Your dog's results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A good chance of showers this morning, otherwise mostly cloudy today, the high 81. Fair tonight, the low 59. Tomorrow and Thursday, partly to mostly sunny both days and very warm. The high tomorrow 86, the high Thursday at 89. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. For Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:57. That's going to wrap it up for hour number 1 of the Gary Harris Show. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way of banking. Hour number 2 is coming up. Kayla Anderson will join us from Nashville at 10:30 to discuss the Titans draft centered on first-round pick J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. We're going to move from right tackle to left tackle with Tennessee. More of your phone calls as well. Another hour of the Gary Harris Show is on the way right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC.
You're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monsi Bolaños.
In the NFL, the Jaguars have released wide receiver Zay Jones and kicker Joey Sly. The Browns have picked up cornerback Greg Newsome's 5th-year option. In the NBA, Timberwolves coach Chris Finch will undergo surgery to repair a right patellar tendon on Wednesday. It remains unclear whether he'll be able to open the conference semifinal series against the Nuggets on the bench. This is according to ESPN. Last night, the defending champion Nuggets eliminated the Lakers from the playoffs with the 108-106 victory. Jamal Murray had another game winner in the series, ended with 32 points. LeBron James ended with 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists.
Tonight, was there any thought at all that, this could have been your last game with the Lakers?
I'm not going to answer that. Appreciate it.
The Thunder completed a sweep of the Pelicans with a 97-89 victory, and the Celtics, they beat the Heat 102-88 to take a 3-1 lead in the series.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
The Alabama Football Spring Transfer Tracker is available for you right now at TuscaloosaThread.com. Plus, the Crimson Tide 2024-2025 men's basketball roster tracker as well. And you can get a sneak peek at weather conditions and temperatures that Alabamians can expect in May by tapping the free Tuscaloosa Thread app. And we have details on a West Alabama man who died after a collision with a fallen tree in Sumter County. And on our free app, you can find out more about the House Tuscaloosa and their official launch of its literacy center and used bookstore.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. I'm Gary Harris. Justin Jones right there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline at 205-342-9904. This hour of the Gary Harris Show brought to you by my good friends Paul Patterson and Mike Comer at Patterson Comer Attorneys at Law. The commitment to serve our clients does not stop at the end of the workday. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Paul Patterson's at 1323 Hargrove Road East in Tuscaloosa, 205-345-1000. That's 205-345-1000. Mike Comer, 303 Main Avenue, Suite A in Northport, 205-759-3939. 205-759-3939, and toll free from anywhere, 866-507-9091. As I said, the commitment to serve our clients does not stop at the end of the workday. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of services performed by other lawyers.
All right, Kayla Anderson talks Tennessee Titans draft, including J.C. Latham coming up at 10:30. Also, just the season upcoming for the Titans. One quick note on football, Justin. And again, you're 25, 24. I'm 59, less than 2 months removed now from 60. Your perspective on time changes as you get older. It really does. You don't realize it now, but you will when you get to be my age. But for me, sometimes I've said this before, I'm in slowdown mode. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people are, I can't wait. I can wait because it comes fast. Once you get to May, and we're going to have graduation at the University of Alabama, and we get that summer break, the student population drops by probably 25,000 students or so. I'm patient with it because football for me is a whirlwind. It doesn't stop. So a lot of people are saying, I can't wait for football season. Believe me, it'll be here before you know it. I've been through this many, many years now as a sportscaster. Once May gets here, you'll go through college baseball and softball postseasons, the World Series for both. You get into early June, and you'll try to take a vacation, and before you know it, it's SEC Media Days. It's August. The season will be here so fast, it'll make your head spin.
Yeah, no, I think I'm already experiencing some of that, Gary. I'm the oldest of 4. I have a younger sister graduating high school. My youngest brother just turned 13 as a teenager now. I know, of course, as I get much older, you start to experience that more, but even just here at the station, I was thinking about how long ago did I go to New Orleans? And that was almost a month ago. Yeah, I felt like yesterday.
Yeah, it's going by so fast. So for those of you out there who are saying, golly, football season will never get here, it'll get here quicker than you think. And I'm going to enjoy the spring. I'm going to enjoy the summer. I'm going to enjoy the break because once it gets here, as I said, for me in my line of work, now listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I work as hard as, a lot of people that do real work that are out there. Doing real hard work, but it is a whirlwind in football season. It's just for me, doing the radio show in the mornings, doing TV at night, doing an hour high school show on Friday nights, covering Alabama. The weeks just kind of run into each other. Now, this is a double bye week for Alabama football this year. There's 2 byes in the season. So that's happened before. It's unusual, but in fact, the first bye, I think, is in September. And so
I believe it's the first one is right before the Georgia game.
Yeah, so there's 2 byes this year, which that means there's 2 Saturdays without Alabama football. But in some ways, again, for me as a sportscaster, gives me a chance to kind of catch my breath a little bit. You still have football, but you don't have Alabama. And, but they're going to play their 12 games. Hopefully going to play a 13th in the SEC championship game, and then hopefully play, a couple more, because I'm hoping they'll be a top 4 seed in the playoff and win another national championship. But it's coming fast. I promise you that. Let's get back to the draft. And again, we were talking with Drew about the staggering number of draft picks that Nick Saban has produced and the unbelievable talent that he has brought through this program. And there are questions now as you go forward in regards to, will that talent level continue under Kalen DeBoer? I think it's going to be really, really good here. I think he's proven that he can recruit at a high level. I don't think he's going to approach Nick Saban numbers. But if you look at what Washington did in the draft this year, and we touched on this a little bit yesterday, he had a draft at Washington 2 years after taking over a program that was, 4-8, that produced 10 picks. And it really was right on pace with Alabama's draft. Now, Jimmy Lake, the predecessor to Kalen DeBoer, did not have results on the field. He did recruit well there, so you have to give him credit. A lot of those players that were drafted from Washington were signed by Jimmy Lake. But I think that Kalen DeBoer is going to recruit very, very well here at Alabama. The question is, and I don't know if I've talked about this on the show, Justin. If not, if I have, then I'm going to repeat myself. If I haven't, then I will. I've talked about it with other people. Alabama's going to have a good team. But first years at Alabama for coaches have not been great. And I guess we have talked about it because you nodded your head. But
all right, no, I was agreeing with you. I don't think we've talked about it.
Okay, well, even Coach Bryant, when he came in 58. Now, listen, the program under Earsworth the year before didn't win a game. Coach Bryant, first year, struggled. Ray Perkins, his first year, lost 4 games. Second year was really bad. First year was not great. Gene Stallings lost his first 3 games that he coached at Alabama his first year. Mike DeBoe's first year was terrible. 97 was awful. Mike Shula, mediocre first year. Even Nick Saban went 7-6. Started 6-2, and through no fault of his own, that season did get derailed a little bit with that textbook deal, the textbook gate thing, where they, Alabama was 6-2. They were 5-2. The announcement came about the textbooks and the suspensions. They still went out and rolled Tennessee that day to get to 6-2. But they didn't win another game until the bowl game, the Independence Bowl that year. They lost their final 4 games, including one to Louisiana Monroe, to finish 6-6, and then they won the bowl game. I have no doubt in my mind, had that textbook thing not hit, that team would have probably won. They went 7-6. I think they would have been 8-5 at worst, maybe 9-3. But still, he had a mediocre first year. So the track records for first-year coaches at Alabama aren't great. So my point is, if in mid-October you look up and Alabama has 2 or 3 losses, Justin, how do you think the fan base is going to handle it? I mean, it's not something that we're used to, and it could happen, not because Alabama won't have a good team, but when you look at this schedule, there are some potential landmines for Alabama. So best case scenario, you look up in mid-October and Alabama's undefeated. But listen, you've got Wisconsin and Madison on September 14th. That's no gimme. Then, as Justin said, you get to bye September 21st, which is a good time for bye. It's an early bye, but you get ready for Georgia. Those aren't going to be easy games. Let me tell you something. Wisconsin up there in Madison that place is going to be lit. They have a great, great home field atmosphere anyway, with Alabama coming in for the first time ever. Those are 2 games that you could lose. You've got Tennessee and Knoxville on October the 19th. So dare I say, if you're playing the bad side of the coin, that by October 19th, Alabama could have 3 losses. How do you think people would handle that if that occurred?
It's going to be a revolution here.
It's not going to be pretty. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, it's going to be fans are going to be loud. And I think, like you said, Gary, the bounce house in Wisconsin is a big worry. Good timing for the bye, but you're right. Could be 3 losses with more tough games to come after that.
But if you're 7 games into the season and you're at 4-3, whoa! I don't even think. Now, listen, there's certainly Alabama could be 7-0, and then it's just the opposite. People are the adulation for this coach and this staff and this team will be unbelievable. But this is a really tough schedule for DeBoer in his first season, in my opinion. Again, you get the extra road game. You don't have the neutral site game. To have to go to Wisconsin early on, that's no gimme. And then, like I said, that Georgia game on September 28th is going to, I'm sure that'll be, I'm guessing game day, the whole schmear will be here for that. But kind of just glancing ahead of the schedule, then you're at Vanderbilt, shouldn't be a problem there. South Carolina and Tuscaloosa shouldn't be a problem there. At Tennessee could be a problem. The way people are talking about Missouri and Tuscaloosa, that's not an automatic W. And then before you know it, you're turning around and you're going to LSU. Now, that comes after another bye. Alabama's second bye will be that first Saturday in November. But then you're at LSU. Then you get Mercer. But then you turn around and you're at Oklahoma on November 23rd. And we've already discussed this. November 23rd in Norman, Oklahoma, it could be okay. It could also be 30 degrees, blustery winds, and snow. I mean, that could be that late in the year. That could be a bad weather game too. And then you have the Iron Bowl November 30th. This is a schedule that is going to test Alabama and head coach Kalen DeBoer. Now, you're in the SEC. Obviously, you're going to be tested every year. But this is there could be easier schedules in this league, I guess is what I'm saying. You could have an easier draw than this. You know, as much as I love that rivalry going to Starkville every other year, I'm going to miss it and I'm going to miss it for Alabama's success against Mississippi State. Let's just say you replaced Georgia with Mississippi State. This schedule gets a lot easier. You know what I mean?
It definitely does. I think that's another aspect to the schedule, Gary, is the teams that we don't play this year and the fact that they're not East and West and SEC anymore. I think the SEC games have that much more impact in determining if we get to go to an SEC championship or not.
They really do. So it is going to be such a interesting season. First year for Coach DeBoer, still kind of trying to figure out exactly what this roster is going to look like. I mean, I know it's going to be good, but there's still a couple of holes. How are they going to go about filling that? And one thing I know is these first 2 games against Western Kentucky and South Florida and Tuscaloosa, Alabama needs to be impressive. They do. They need to be impressive just to kind of get the fans on board. You don't want to come out. You know, we saw what happened last year. Of course, that game was down in Tampa. But you do not want to struggle with a new coach in either one of these first 2 games. These need to be whitewash games. I mean, these need to be over at halftime kind of games. I'm sorry, they just do. To go ahead and build some confidence with this new coaching staff and team and your fan base before you need to go into Wisconsin having beaten Western Kentucky, let's say 51-3, and beaten South Florida, let's say 45-10. You know, these games don't need to be competitive in the second half. They just don't need to be. You need to go ahead and wipe the floor with these teams. Have that confidence, go on the road, win at Wisconsin, get to your bye, and then you got a lot of positive momentum going into that Georgia game.
Do you think there needs to be a certain type of outcome against Wisconsin going into the bye, or do you think just getting a win?
Just getting a win. In that one, yeah, you need to be impressive against Western Kentucky and South Florida. And listen, I know it was down there, but we know what South Florida did against Alabama last year. And Alabama was unsettled. I get it. But you need to wipe the floor with them. When you go to Madison, that game just needs to be a W. I would take right now. I'm sorry. I think that's going to be a really tough game. I'd take a 1-pointer there. Get to the bye 3-0 going into Georgia, and you kind of get with the early bye. You kind of hit the reset button right off the bat. You kind of get to hit the reset button, and finish that first 3-game stretch 3-0. And then start it back over with Georgia. All right, it's 10:16 here on the Gary Harris Show. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa, Y is ready for you when you're ready for the Y. And I love the place and get in there as often as I can. Great community of people, great facility. awesome personal trainers. Personal training, I've said this before, is something if you've hit the wall a little bit and you need some help getting over the hump, personal training can help you. They've got it at the Y. They've got all kinds of fitness classes for different types of workouts. They've got the Silver Sneakers program for seniors. They'll help you with your child daycare. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa, full-service fitness and health facility, 2300 13th Street downtown. Get by and see them today. We'll be back after this.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept, Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m., available for after hours.
We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Visit PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representations made that the legal services provided by Patterson Comer is greater than any other legal services performed by any other lawyer.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
It's set for just $49.98. Get Klein Tools in-store and online today because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A good chance of showers this morning, otherwise mostly cloudy today, the high 81. Fair tonight, the low 59. Tomorrow and Thursday, partly to mostly sunny both days and very warm. The high tomorrow 86, the high Thursday at 89. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
All right, 10:20. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. And we were discussing Alabama's schedule. And we got all summer, like I said, to break it down. But it is going to be it's going to be a tough one. I do like having the double bye. As I said, I do like, in this case, getting through those first three games and then getting that bye before you host Georgia. I think that will be welcome. All right, let's jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline. Remember, Krispy Kreme, hot and fresh right now. And talk with Roland, our pal from over there at Lake Guntersville. Hey, good morning, Roland.
Hey, Gary. Hope you're having a good day, buddy.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about schedules. You're talking about the gods smiling on somebody. The SEC gods are smiling on A&M. Have you looked at their schedule?
I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. Why don't you break it down for me?
They've got 9 built-in wins, plus they play Texas and Notre Dame at home. And then I believe they might play LSU on the road. But, boy, the gods are smiling. I mean, I've looked at most of the schedules, and, most SEC schedules are pretty tough. But A&M, man, they for whatever reason, got an easier schedule than most everybody else. They play like New Mexico State, Manise State, Notre Dame, and another Patsy for the fourth non-conference game. Bowling Green, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing the schedule
If Jimbo could have just made it one more year, Roland. If Jimbo could have just made it one more season, he might have finally had that magical year, but he didn't.
Yeah. But are you looking at the schedule?
Let me pull it up real quick because I have not been, but I'll pull it up. Won't take me but a second here.
Like I say, I think Notre Dame and Texas is at home, so it's advantage A&M there.
Let me pull it up real quick here. All right, there it is, and let's see, because you said 9 built-in wins, so that's a lot. Let's see here. All right, let's go through this. Yep, now listen. Opening at Kyle Field or not in the first game of the year, Notre Dame's a still tough game now, Roland. I don't care where you play them.
I agree with that.
I certainly wouldn't give them an automatic W there by any means. they play one game and then get a bye. So they go to Florida. Yeah, they should. No, I'm sorry. They do play the 7th. It's like a bye. They get McNeese State, like you said. They don't. That might as well be a bye. So let's just go through this. Right now, I would call Notre Dame a toss-up. They're going to beat McNeese. Even though it's Florida, I'm not going to call Florida an automatic win for them. Not in Gainesville. I won't do it. Bowling Green's an automatic win at Arkansas or against Arkansas at AT&T Stadium there in Arlington. That's a rivalry game. I guess I see it a little bit differently than you do right off the bat. I think Missouri's going to be a tough game for them at Kyle Field. They're at Mississippi State. They should win that one. They got LSU at home. That's not an automatic win. At South Carolina, they probably should win. Then they get a bye. Obviously, they're going to beat New Mexico State. They should. They go to Auburn, and then they play Texas. So I see your point, but I guess looking at what Texas A&M's done, I don't give them nearly as many automatic wins as you do. I think that some of these games for them they may win them, but
Notre Dame in Texas, I wasn't giving them a win.
I know, but I'm not giving them an automatic win at Florida. I'm not giving them an automatic win against LSU. I'm not giving them an automatic win against Arkansas. I'm not giving them an automatic win against Missouri. Anytime this team goes on the road, even at South Carolina, to me, that's not automatic wins. Now, I'm not saying they won't win those games, but I do agree with you that it's on paper. It's not a terrible schedule, but this is A&M we're talking about. They hadn't exactly set the world on fire. So I think.
If you look at it, their schedule's not near as tough as Alabama or Georgia.
Well, I would agree with you there. I would definitely agree with you there.
Where we play more of the upper echelon teams in SEC, they play, the Mississippi States and the, Missouris and people like that, which you can always lose that game. I know that and realize that, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm with you. I think on paper they've got an easier schedule than Alabama. I'll give you that.
And Florida, I ain't got no confidence in that coach they got. Talking about a schedule, Florida. If they win 6 games, that guy should be coach of the year. Their schedule is brutal.
It is. Now, Florida's schedule is by far, in my opinion, the toughest schedule in the SEC. You're absolutely right, Roland. It is, for Billy Napier to even finish with a winning record is going to be tough because that one is, I'm going to pull it up because, we're talking about easier schedules. This poor Florida schedule, it is absolutely, let's go through this one real quick. We got a couple minutes here. All right, you're talking about opening with Miami, even though that's in Gainesville. That's a tough game for them. All right, Sanford, they'll win that one. Texas A&M is going to be, as we said, a winnable game, but not easy. Hang on, I just pulled it. There's so many ads now when you pull something up. You got to go through everything to look at it. Let's see. At Mississippi State, right now I would give them a win there. UCF's a rivalry game, but I'd give them a win there. But then at Tennessee, I'd give them a loss. At home against Kentucky, possibly a win. Georgia loss. At Texas, a loss. LSU probably a loss. Ole Miss, Florida State. You're right. It's just there aren't many. There's Sanford and there is Sanford. The rest of them are tough games. There are no more gimmies.
I don't know if I've ever seen a schedule that tough.
Yeah,
when you consider the outside.
It's brutal.
The teams that play outside plus the teams that play inside the SEC with LSU and A&M and I think you said Texas or somebody or on that. It's brutal. I feel for Billy. He's got almost no shot at succeeding there. The way it looks.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but you play them one at a time, and I think if he could knock off a couple of these teams, whether it be a Georgia or whether it be a LSU or whether it be a Texas or obviously his rivalry games against Florida State and Miami, you win a couple of those though, and I think the fans cut you a little bit of slack. I don't think anybody's expecting him to go, 12-0, but if you could go, let's say you could go even 7-5 or 8-4 and get a couple of really big wins. I think they'd be okay with it because they know that the schedule is really, really tough.
Yeah, but I think he probably needs to beat somebody he shouldn't beat, don't you?
Yeah, I do. That's what I'm saying. He's going to need to knock somebody off. And but it also, though, even outside the SEC, if he could beat Florida State and Miami, and now, of course, add in Central Florida, if he could win that trifecta, that'd carry a lot of weight with Gator fans now. If that'd
be huge.
You take care of your state, that would be big too. But the fact that he's got to play all three of those teams, it's tough, my friend. Hey, great call as always, Roland.
Okay, Gary, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, it's 10:27 here on the Gary Harris Show, and
really quick, Gary, there's some breaking news.
Okay, get it.
Apparently, Jaron Stevenson, the NBA has put out the list of players that have entered their name into the draft, and Jaron Stevenson is one of them who's entering the NBA draft 2024.
Wow, where did you see that? Just on
the NBA communications, the NBA PR Twitter posted the list. 195 players have filed early, and on that list, and Wyatt and Mike Rodak are reporting that Jaron Stevenson is there.
Now, the good news is that certainly doesn't mean that he's going into the draft. It just means that he's eligible for the draft. Doesn't mean he's going to leave. He could be just filling out his but thanks for giving us the heads up on that. Let me pull that up myself because I want to see what we're talking about here. He is. He has declared for the NFL draft or NBA draft, and so now we'll have to watch him. I don't think that he is going to. I don't think he's going to leave Alabama for the NBA. I just don't think he's ready. But I think he'll wind up staying at Alabama. But I don't necessarily blame him for taking a look at it. I really don't. So. We will, but we'll keep an eye on that for sure. All right, 10:29. Krispy Kreme is open 7 days a week. To see our complete donut, coffee, and espresso menu, visit our website at KrispyKremeTuscaloosa.com. Krispy Kreme, hot now and anytime.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and
you can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
(10:32), 28 minutes in front of the hour, 11 o'clock. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and you hear that song. It's usually in season for the Tennessee Titans Report with Kayla Anderson, but we're going to talk Titans draft with Kayla from the great radio show Ramon, Kayla, and Will on 104.5 The Zone. She's also an Emmy-winning sports anchor on television, so we're thrilled every time we have her join us to talk Tennessee Titans. Good morning, Kayla. How are you?
I'm good. I hope you guys are all doing well here.
Yeah.
Almost we're into summer. Crazy enough, we'll do football season before we know it.
Yeah, I actually had a little beach getaway over the weekend, so it was nice. And trying to follow the draft down there, but when the Titans took J.C. Latham in the first round, number 7 overall, I'm like, well, I'll have to talk to Kayla. And let's start right there, and we'll get into the entire draft. But, you know, the Titans need a tackle. Alt went off the board of the Chargers. We thought the Chargers might take Latham. They went with Alt. I told you in a text that you're going to love this guy, J.C. Latham. Engaging personality, mammoth of a man. Now, he is a right tackle. He played left tackle in high school, but played right tackle exclusively at Alabama. Going to move him back to left tackle. Of course, when you got an offensive line coach like Bill Callahan, you'll trust him. But any concerns there as far as moving back to left tackle? And what's the feeling on the pick there in Nashville, J.C. Latham, first round, number 7 overall?
Yeah, I'll start with this by saying, and I'll be honest with this, we did not talk a lot about J.C. Latham really coming to Tennessee in the pre-draft process because in all accounts, we thought, okay, that very thing. He played primarily right tackle at Alabama. Yes, we knew of the history of him playing left tackle at IMG. However, we just kind of assumed if you're going to take a tackle, because this has been the Achilles heel of this Titans, team, specifically left tackle on the line, that they were going to go primarily with a left tackle that is at least played at level. So I think we talked a lot about the Joe Alt, the Olu Fashanu, the guys like that who they kind of thought these are what the Titans are going to go and target. Then once we started getting closer to draft time, we heard a little bit more about J.C. Latham, and it's almost like his stock started to rise even higher in terms of some of these top 10 teams who had picks taking him. And we heard a lot about the L.A. Chargers and possibly going there because really when you looked at that situation, Jim Harbaugh has a left tackle right now. He didn't have his right tackle. So that was really the talk leading up to the draft, probably 2 weeks leading up to it. And then we all saw what happened with Joe Alt. He goes to the Chargers. We also have been hearing now after the draft that the New York Giants were also interested in Alt. So there was a good chance that he was never going to fall to the Titans. Now, with saying that, we did have some people on our show that were talking very highly of J.C. Latham and his ability to be able to move back to left tackle. And he has the qualities and the ability to relearn the techniques that he needs to learn on the left side. But I think the biggest thing in this equation was they were willing to take him as maybe not a left tackle in college and put him there because they've got Bill Callahan. And if anybody has a chance to do that, and if you want to even call it a gamble to take him at number 7, it's the Tennessee Titans because they have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coaches in the NFL now. And they're very confident that they can get him ready to be the left tackle. And that's where they said they're going to start him. And this is a guy, too, that in all accounts of what I've heard was Bill Callahan's top tackle. He wanted J.C. Latham, and they got their man. And you talked about the personality of this guy. My goodness.
You'll love him.
I mean, the second we jumped on that Zoom call after he was drafted, I was like, we are in heaven right now. Because, first of all, it's hard to find offensive linemen that are able to be that engaging. And I'm not talking about talking football, but also can be personality.
That's right.
Engaging and people can fall in love with a guy who's on the O-line, right? It doesn't always have to be a wide receiver or a cornerback. Like, it's kind of nice to have a guy like that who can also be a guy that you're going to talk about, and he's an offensive lineman. And that's kind of what I got from him in the 2 times I've met him in the last week or so.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy covering him, that's for sure. Yeah, I saw some of the draft grades. All in all, pretty good on the Titans, and there was certainly some knocks for taking Latham in that spot, but I'm gonna trust Bill Callahan over some guy that works for a newspaper and puts out a draft grade. Not saying that those people haven't studied it, but and of course I'm biased a little bit toward J.C. Latham too. I think he'll transition to left tackle just fine. He's athletic, got good feet, long arms, and again, Kayla, you got one of the legendary offensive line coaches of all time. I think that he wanted this guy, and I'm gonna ride it out with him. I think it's gonna be a really good pick, and that he'll get the job done at left tackle.
I do too, and we talked with one of his IMG coaches today, actually on the show, and we specifically brought up the fact that what you gotta love about J.C. Latham too is he's got that like natural ability to do different things. That's what he's done in his entire career, and he's had success at it. I mean, you're talking about a kid that came in from Wisconsin who was playing on a defensive line, right? Was one of the top in the country at that position. He comes into IMG, where you're going up against some of the best talents in the world, and they have injuries on the offensive line and ask him, hey, can you come onto the offensive line. We need you there. And he turns into a great prospect at left tackle, so much so that Alabama recruits him. And then you get to Alabama, and they've got their left tackle, and Saban says, hey, we need you to play on the right side. And he goes there, and he dominates on the right side. That, to me, is such a rare characteristic for a person to be able to almost on a snap have to change to a position. And yet there's going to be some adjustment period, but initially has found success wherever he has landed on the football field. And that's why, in my mind, that plus Bill Callahan, I'm sorry, it's not a worry to me.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, this draft, I like it. I mean, it looks to me that there was a concerted effort to bring in productive players from major college programs. Let's start with the second-round pick, T'Vondre Sweat. I know there's concern about his weight, concern maybe about his attitude sometimes, whether or not he can be a three-down player, but the talent is there. I don't think that's in question. Again, you're talking about a big, strong, physical, run-stuffing player. Can he play on third down? But, that's going to be up to him as a player to get his weight down and be what he needs to be. But the talent is there and the production's there, right?
It is. I think the Titans, if they're getting, and I have seen some questionable grades that they're getting because of this pick specifically, because this was maybe a gamble to take a guy that, like you said, the weight could be a concern, being able to be a three-down player, and also the characteristic part, which this is the part that I'm going to talk about why I think it's going to be an incredible fit for him here. Could be the best place if he was going to land somewhere. It was probably best he came here because there was the DWI that happened really just weeks before the draft, and his draft stock kind of fell because of that, because teams were, questioning his character. The Titans liked him so much, Gary, that not only did they bring him in for a top 30 visit to kind of get a grasp of his character and let him explain himself 2 days after he got that DWI, that even in that top 30 visit, they weren't completely satisfied with how he was approaching it. They thought, he's still kind of just trying to prove his innocence or just kind of trying to explain too much. And they didn't feel like they got a good idea of who he really was as a player and a person. So much so that they took down their private plane to Texas to meet with his mom, taking Tracy Rocker, the defensive line coach, Bill Callahan, and Rand Carthon, and met with him down there in his environment with his mom and kind of got the real look at who T'Vondre Sweat was and what kind of football player and person would he be for our program. And they took him. They took him at a spot where they had offers to trade down and get more picks, and they said no because we're too worried that he'll get off the board if we go too far down in that second round. And so they were that confident in this young man that they took him there. And that's why I can't question that pick either, because if there's one thing we've learned in the offseason about this coaching staff, they are very serious about the development of players and taking players that want to be here and who fit what they are looking for. Mm-hmm. And I think T'Vondre Sweat will pay off in the long run for those reasons. And oh, by the way, he's going to be right next to one of the best linemen in the NFL who also had character issues supposedly coming out of the first round when he was taken. And that has never been a thing here.
Yeah, great analysis there, Kayla. Kayla Anderson with us. Like I said, I love this draft. I think the Titans got a steal in the fourth round with Cedric Gray. I mean, the measurables, the athleticism, great size for the modern-day NFL linebacker, and the stats were incredible at North Carolina. I mean, a tackling machine. I was surprised he lasted this long. What's the feeling here? Is it in Nashville that, I believe that they got a steal on this guy and that he's going to be a productive football player right off the bat?
You're right on. This is my favorite pick of the draft. I think you say it's a steal. I almost felt I was a really big proponent, Gary, on finding a way to get a third-round pick because I felt like third-round picks are so valuable, and the Titans didn't have a third-round pick. Well, guess what? I feel like they got their third-round pick in Cedric Gray because I think that's how much value this guy brings in day one. I mean, you talked about just the production at North Carolina. He's a 3-year guy, so he has played a ton of football. And I specifically asked him about how that helps you, at the next level, being able to have that many snaps. And he said it helps tremendously. And not only did he play a lot of football, this is a guy who was a team captain. These are all characteristics that Brian Callahan, when he was hired, laid out for what they're looking for in terms of guys that they're taking in the draft, right? Programs, character, what type of leadership they have. And this guy checks all of those boxes. To add to it, Gary, they really needed someone to complement their free agent signing in Kenneth Murray, who they're really kind of looking at to let him play loose, right? Let him free, because he wasn't able to do that with the Chargers, and I don't think that set him up for success. He's an athletic freak. They needed someone to complement him, and I think Cedric Gray brings athleticism, but I think he brings so much knowledge, and a guy that you could really see maybe even possibly wearing that green dot his rookie year, like a Fred Warner did, who, by the way, Ran Carthon, brought him to the 49ers when Rand was there. And I think Rand sees a little bit of that, football IQ in him. And by the way, it's one of Cedric Gray's favorite players, Fred Warner. So I just thought this was a home run pick, especially in the 4th round.
The rest of the draft with Jarvis Brownlee, the corner from Louisville, Jaquan Jackson, the wide receiver from Tulane, James Williams, the linebacker from Miami, and really an intriguing pick in Jalen Harrell from the national championship Michigan Wolverines, who maybe didn't have the production that the measurables would lead you to believe that he should have had with his size. But again, a lot of athleticism here, a lot of proven football players. What do you think of the draft overall?
I loved it. I really did. And I think there was, some people are always going to have their criticisms of certain players. But if you look at what they got value-wise, when we hear a lot of people saying, hey, because of the NIL now and because of underclassmen not declaring for the draft, you're going to see a drop-off, after that 4th round, specifically in the type of players you're getting. I thought, for all intents and purposes, if you look at that, I think they've got a lot of value in those bottom, round picks where they could really utilize these guys in different ways. And I think that's the biggest thing you got to take from this class is they're going to have a chance to mold these players into what they want them to be under, again, I'll mention it again because it is really an emphasis here for this franchise that has really pushed the reset button. They have coaches at every position who have been excellent in terms of development of players. And I think you're going to see that with what they got. They got exactly what they were looking for. They did not shy away from what, the equation was here in the draft. And they're going to try to make them the best they can be. And another thing Rand Carthon mentioned, we got players who all have something to prove. Maybe they all feel like they should have gone a certain place in the draft or, that they should have gone higher or something. They all have something to prove. And I really like that personality of having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder and having something to prove because, again, this is a Titans team that people are doubting, and it's going to take a little bit to get back to where you want them to be. But I think they're starting off with the right recipe in this draft.
Kayla Anderson with a Tennessee Titans draft recap. Overall, with Brian Callahan coming in as a 39-year-old head coach, of course, his father, Bill, will be on the staff. Derrick Henry moves on. It's really a reset button for the whole organization, bringing in Tony Pollard. What's the vibe right now as we sit here, in late April in regards to what this team could potentially do in the upcoming season in a division that, quite frankly, every year seems wide open going in? What's the vibe on the Titans for 2024?
I do think it's really night and day from the end of last season where I think there was a lot of confusion and, why do you hire or fire Mike Vrabel? A lot of people thought he was going to be here. And then there's a lot of people that did want him out, right? And I'm not going to sit here and compare and contrast to, what this team is going to be compared to what it was under the Mike Vrabel era, because I personally liked a lot of the things that Mike Vrabel did. I think at times his staff was questionable, the people he put around him or the people that he refused maybe to let go. I think that might have hurt him in the end, maybe some of that stubbornness. But I think, give credit because he got this team to the playoffs. I mean, he got them pretty far in terms of getting a shot at the Super Bowl. But now when you look at this team, it's kind of like, okay, we push the reset button in terms of this is the new era of the NFL, right? Things are done differently. There's so much more emphasis on offense, which I don't think you got a lot with the old Tennessee teams. And so I think that's what's refreshing. We've seen so many years, even their successful years, of just lack of offensive production, not having those wide receivers that, you see going to other places and having success. And I think overall people are excited in what they did in free agency and how this offense could be trending because you've hired a guy that's offensive minded and who's done great work with quarterbacks wherever he's been. And that's, I think, the one question mark, Gary, is what will Will Levis be? What is Will Levis going to be is what's going to, I think, be what this team turns into. If he's able to move in the right direction this next year, if he's able to take big steps, then you got something cooking. And they've done everything they can to surround him to be successful. Now it's a little bit in Will Levis's hands on what you do with it. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be sugarcoating this statement. He's got a lot on his shoulders this next year. And I think he has the capability to be great, but that's a lot of pressure. And so we'll see what happens because, again, they've set him up for success. Now what does he do with it?
Yeah, good stuff. All right, the stadium won't be ready, the new Nissan Stadium, until 2027, but I guess there's now just a positive vibe knowing that you're going to be in the stadium. Everything's good with the team staying long term. Is that still a lot of buzz about knowing that this is a long-term situation now for the Titans in Nashville?
Yeah, and I think that was always something you felt like was going to get done. I will say this about the city of Nashville, and I've lived here for 8 years now, is, look, they care about their sports team, right? The Nashville Predators or the MLS team that they built a brand new soccer-specific stadium for a couple of years ago, just to show, like, we want to be taken seriously as a sports town. I think that people had the feeling like they were going to get this thing done. Like, Amy Adams-Strunk is a lot more of a boss lady than people might give her credit for. And this was something that she was, like, determined to do. So I think people are really excited for this new stadium that's not only going to be home to the Tennessee Titans, but that's going to bring in every big act under the sun, whether that be sports-related in the Final Four or the SEC Championship possibly, or the National Championship, but also things like music, right? I mean, they want the Grammys. They want things like that. And that was a part of, building this new stadium was for the city of Nashville to, continue to bring in people from all over the world and bring excitement here. Again, I know Detroit passed them technically with the attendance at the NFL draft, but the minute it comes back to Nashville, baby, expect them to break that right again.
Kayla, awesome report. Appreciate you jumping on with us and fill the listeners in on, where they can listen to your show and the social media handles, all those good bits of information that our listeners might need to follow you.
Yeah, Ramon, Kayla, and Will, you can check that out on podcast, wherever you get podcasts. We're from 6 to 10 a.m. in the mornings. And then we also are on Twitter. I'm at Kayla Anderson TV. I tweet out a lot of those links, too, just if you want to follow along with any of the segments we've had. We might even have J.C. Latham on this week. So I'll put that out on Twitter.
Yeah, awesome. And if you get that, I might have to ask permission to rerun that interview on my show.
Absolutely. I will let you know, and you can do that. Absolutely.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thanks, Gary. See you guys.
All right, 10:52. We've got one final break to take before we wrap up the show. Getting you ready for T-Town Sports Daily coming up at 11 a.m. Again, the breaking news on Jaron Stevenson entering the NBA draft. I don't think this is anything more, Justin, other than to get feedback and see exactly where he stands in NBA eyes. And so if he were in the portal, If he'd gone in the portal, then obviously, you'd have been worried about losing him. In this case, I think Jaron Stevenson is just getting NBA feedback.
DrMartyPets.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511. All dogs are unique. Your dog's results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A good chance of showers this morning, otherwise mostly cloudy today, the high 81. Fair tonight, the low 59. Tomorrow and Thursday, partly to mostly sunny both days and very warm. The high tomorrow 86, the high Thursday at 89. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:56. That's going to close out the show for today. Reminder, catch me on TV tonight with your local sports and with Rodney Orr for Tider Insider TV. That comes up at 6:30 on WVUA 23. And then back here tomorrow for the Wednesday edition, we'll have Matt Coulter on NASCAR. Plus, we'll continue to look at the portal, the coming and goings of not just Alabama players, but players around the country. This little tidbit, JT Toppin has entered the transfer portal. He's a 6'9" forward. As a freshman, he started 35 of 36 games at New Mexico, 12.4 points, 62% field goal shooting, 9.1 rebounds, 1.9 blocks, and 1.1 steals. And just a guy to watch. Really good player. And had a great freshman year, was the Mountain West Rookie of the Year. Just saying, he's in the portal. So another guy to keep an eye on with Alabama. They want another big. So that's another guy that might draw some interest. Well, he's going to draw interest from a lot of teams. Alabama possibly could be one of them. We'll have that update, if it is indeed the case, tomorrow. And maybe we'll hear something on Cliff Amore here soon from Rutgers. And I still feel like Alabama's the favorite to land him. All right, this hour of the Gary Harris Show has been brought to you by Patterson Comer Attorneys at Law. We're, as I said, going to get out of here now. T-Town Sports Daily, 11 until noon. The Miller's Edge, noon until 2, and then Ryan Fowler with the game, 2 until 6. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you again in the morning at 9 a.m.